Okay, so this paper that you've got in front of you is a hybrid of a paper that was done at another school a few years ago. So this goes through the same process that I explained in the previous video. So section 1, you'll get multiple choice questions, just the same type of ones as what you've got here, all right? This section we said was on nature of religion and beliefs and Aboriginal spiritualities. So you'll have the multiple choice questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And a pass mark in this section would probably be 8 out of 10. All right, we can smash multiple choices because the answers are right in front of us. Unfortunately, in the prelim course, there's not many examples that we can practice on. When we get to the HSC, we'll get lots and lots of examples that we can practice on, so we'll get really good at these multiple choice questions. Here's the 5 marker. So it can either be on nature of religion or Aboriginal spiritualities. This one, for example, is on Aboriginal spiritualities. Now, this is not a higher order question. As soon as we see that key verb as an outline, we know that this is aimed at probably a band 3 or a band 4 student. So everyone should be able to achieve, in this room, should be able to achieve a 5 out of 5 for this question. So going through our process of annotating around the question, key verb is the outline. When we outline, we sketch in general terms. Our content here is the dreaming. And our qualifier would be the nature. There doesn't appear to be any bossies in this, so telling us how many examples. The only bossy that I can see in this is the marks, and it's worth 5. Because there's no stimulus that we can refer to in our response, we're going to need 2 solid examples in this. Okay? So, if we want to outline the nature of the dreaming, first of all, we're going to need a good definition. Almost always in these 5 markers, it's coming directly from a syllabus dot point, so we need to have a definition of whatever it is. So in your preparation, because we haven't done this for literally 6 months, you need to go through your syllabus for nature of religion and Aboriginal spiritualities and make sure that you've got a definition for each of the terms in the syllabus there, because there's I reckon a 90% chance that you're going to be using a definition in this 5-mark response. Okay? Then what we would need to do is the same as a appeal paragraph, an explanation and an example, or the way I like to do it, an example and an elaboration of that example, and I would do that 2 times. So the definition of the dreaming is going to be something to do with the nature of Aboriginal spiritualities and their relationship with the land, the inextricable connection to the land. And then we would talk about things like, so that would be my definition. Then an example that I would use about the nature of the dreaming would be kinship. The kinship groups, and I could do totems or ceremonial life. Because it's worth 5 marks and it's only an outline, I'm going to do the 2 examples that I know best. So say, for example, my definition has to do with what the dreaming is and the nature of the land and how it dictates relationships between people and ensuring the longevity of the tradition. Then I would give a definition of what the kinship groups are and an example. That would be a concrete example, something like the kinship groups in Dharawal country or whatever that might be. And then I'd have a definition of ceremonial life and an example of what that ceremonial life might be, and it could be an initiation rite. And that would be enough to get us a 5 marker out there, simply because the average for this one would be around about 4 out of 5, because it's an outline. It's not asking us to do anything more detailed than that. Okay. So flicking over to section 2, I wouldn't look at section 2 until I've looked at the essays, because I want to figure out what's best for me. This is our 20-mark response. That's incorrect. This is our 20-mark response for this one, for section 3. Just cross that out yourselves on yours. What you'll notice here is that there are 5 religious traditions. You only choose one religious tradition. The reason that there's 5 traditions on there is because this paper has to cater for everything that the syllabus allows students in Year 11 to study. Other schools study, say, Buddhism and Christianity. We study Christianity and Islam. Other schools study Hinduism. Very, very few. That's the least popular one across the state. Or it could be Judaism. That's the 3rd most popular. Christianity is the most popular. Islam's the 2nd most. Judaism's the 3rd. Buddhism, and then Hinduism's the 5th most popular one. Please only answer one of these essays. When I was at one of my previous schools, a kid answered all of those questions even though we didn't study 3 of those religions. So make sure you just choose one of them. Now, these are very basic questions, so they're probably not aimed too high, simply because they haven't given us a stimulus. Okay, so this paper was written in 2013. I can almost guarantee you're going to be given a stimulus in your exam. Okay, so stimuli is good because it gives us a springboard into our response. We know how to take aspects of those that stimulus out and use it to springboard into each of our paragraphs that we're going to be writing. Okay, so we need to make a decision here. The Christianity question, where 20 marks, says, using examples, we're going to be doing that anyway, analyse. So when we analyse something, we don't necessarily make a judgment, but we draw out and relate implications. Okay, so when we're looking at annotating around our question, we can actually annotate also around whatever the definition of the key verb is. So it tells us that we relate implications. So there's plural there. So we know we have to have more than one implication in whatever it is. We have to relate. That would probably be a... When we draw out something, we find aspects. So if this is an essay and we have an introduction and a conclusion, we're looking at probably 4 good body paragraphs, maybe even 5. So just by looking at that analyse, I haven't even read the rest of the question yet. We're going to be looking at 4 or 5 different aspects of whatever it is, okay? And we have to make relate implications, so show links. Again, we've got a plural there, so more than one, so that we know we're probably looking at 5 things. Analyse how the sacred text, okay, so now we're getting into our content, straight from the syllabus. We can even do a bossy in there. And we'll be looking at the Old and the New Testament. Testaments. Demonstrate the principal beliefs, again, straight from the syllabus. We've even got a demonstrate in there. The principal beliefs, plural, of Christianity. So, one of the things that we could even make that a qualifier in there if you wanted to. One of the bits of feedback that we got from our essays that we did at the most recent task is that we probably tried to put too much in there. So, if we've got 5 main principal beliefs or core beliefs of the tradition, and we said we could have the church as the body of Christ in there as well. In this one, we'd probably be looking at, even if we just did 3 or 4 principal beliefs but did them well, we could get a 20 out of 20. So if we're looking at drawing out and relating implications, we would want to be able to find the principal belief of the tradition, so whether that is the humanity and divinity of Jesus, the life, death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus, salvation, revelation, church is the body of Christ, and what's the one that I'm missing? The triune God. Okay, so I've got 6 of them down there. In an essay, for a 17-year-old, it's reasonable to think that you would be able to remember those and probably remember 3 of them well. Okay, none of us are religious scholars, so it's fine if we've only got 35 minutes to write this, so it'll be okay if we don't remember it perfectly. Okay, so using those principal beliefs, I'd have to have links to the sacred texts. If we got this question, we'd smash it, because this is almost exactly what we did for our task 2. Okay, so I'd be looking at this question, thinking, all right, even without all that annotation, I know this information, so the Islam essay is going to have to really work to my strengths for me to choose Islam. All right, but let's have a look anyway. We still haven't made a decision. We're going to keep an open mind. Let's have a look at the Islam question. Okay, it's the exact same question, but it's just the Islamic text and Islamic principal beliefs. So we do the same thing, sacred text of Islam, the Quran, Sunnah and Hadith, and how that demonstrates the principal beliefs, so the 6 articles of faith for Islam. If you know the 6 articles of faith really, really well, and some people do, because I know we've done the flashcards and whatnot, and if we've got links to quotes in the sacred text, then that could be something that you would choose to do. Yeah, I'd be able to smash that Islam question, so I'm going to do Islam in section 3 because it's worth 20 marks, and I'll do Christianity in section 2. So a good way, regardless of whichever one you choose, is a couple of tips to remember, is in every single paragraph, make sure you provide a quote. Okay? If they give you a quote, provide a complementary quote. So if you go in there with a quote for each of the principal beliefs that you might be able to use also for ethical teachings, you've only got to remember 5 quotes going into the exam. All right, so now that we've made our decision, I've made my decision, I'm going to do Christianity for the essay, which means I could look at Christianity for section 2, but it'll be a waste of time. So I'm going to do Islam for section 2. Worth 15 marks. See here, the combination is 4, 5 and 6. Let's have a look if it was true to my hypothesis that they go the easier order key verbs first and the harder ones last. A, B and C. Identify. Man, that's not difficult at all. Outline. Modality is going up a little bit because we're sketching in general terms. Discuss. We need to have 2 sides of the argument. So, yep, my hypothesis worked on this one, and it's going in increasing difficulty. So that would mean if we're just identifying, basically everyone in this room will be able to get 4 out of 4 because we have to identify and outline 1 principal belief in Islam. Okay, I'm going to do predestination, that Allah is omniscient and knows everything that's going to happen. An example of this is, and you've got your 4 marks. Okay, that's an easy 4 marks. Outline the development of Islam after the death of Muhammad. Okay, that's a little bit more difficult. We'd have to have good memory recall. But if we can recall and recount what happened as a result of that and then go into the 4 rightly guided caliphs, talk about how there was sectarian conflict between the Sunnis and the Shiites, you don't need to put your judgment in there. All you need to do is just, not dot point, but sentence what happened in sequence, and you're looking at a 5 out of 5 for that one. If it's worth 5 marks, you're probably looking at just 5 things that happened after Muhammad died. Doesn't need to be fluffy or anything, just go straight to the point. The 6 mark, however, we need to look at 2 sides of something. Discuss the importance. All right, so now this is higher order. So you're going to have to show something, a depth of knowledge here. So we would need to, in this case, discuss. So either for and against, positive or negative, this side or that side when we're doing a discuss. In this case, it's the importance. Here's a qualifier. Of the core ethical teachings of Islam. There's our content. It's asking us for more than one. In the lives of adherents. So that's individuals. And there's our qualifier as well. So we know that the core purpose of the life of any Muslim is to submit to the will of Allah. Okay, so we have to talk about the submission of adherence to the will of Allah. When it says adherence, in the syllabus it asks about individual or community, we can talk about both in this one here. If we just spoke about an adherent for an individual and the importance of the core ethical teachings, we're probably not going to be as full a response as if you talked about the community as well. So a great thing for and against there is the two H words for ethical teachings in Islam, halal or haram. And basically things that are permitted or things that are forbidden. Right, and that's great for a discuss question there. Then you would be able to go on talk about things that are permitted, things that are forbidden. All in the aim of submitting to the will of Allah. Okay, so you come up with some examples there. That would be a basic structure. I would be very surprised if you had a 6-marker that did not have a stimulus. So we need to bank on there being a stimulus in the final part of section 2 and also in our essay.